The nervous system operates by sending signals from one cell to another. A neuron talks or communicates to its target cell at the synapse, the junction between those two cells. The cell that is sending the signal is referred to as the presynaptic neuron. The cell that is receiving the signal is referred to as the postsynaptic cell. It may be a neuron, but it may also be some other kind of cell, like a muscle or a gland. There are two major types of synapses that we find in the body. The first is referred to as a chemical synapse because it releases chemicals called neurotransmitters into the synaptic cleft. The second is called an electrical synapse because it allows ions to move directly from one neuron into the next. Of these two types of synapses, the chemical type is by far the most common found in the body. In a chemical synapse, the presynaptic neuron contains a number of synaptic vesicles, small membrane bubbles that can contain chemicals like neurotransmitter. In each synapse, there can be dozens or hundreds or thousands of neurotransmitters. The postsynaptic cell must contain receptors for those chemical neurotransmitters. In order for this communication to happen between the presynaptic neuron and the receptor cell, the presynaptic neuron must have the chemical neurotransmitter, but the postsynaptic cell must have a receptor that can bind to that neurotransmitter. The steps of this process, the steps of a chemical synapse, would start with the arrival of an action potential traveling down the axon towards the axon terminus. That action potential opens voltage-gated calcium channels in the surface of the axon terminus. Calcium then diffuses into the axon terminus and serves as the chemical message that causes those synaptic vesicles to merge with the plasma membrane and release the neurotransmitters by exocytosis. Those neurotransmitters then diffuse across the synaptic cleft and bind to receptors on the postsynaptic cell. Once that neurotransmitter has bound to a receptor, it opens ion channels in the postsynaptic cell membrane that allows ions to start to diffuse into the postsynaptic cell, resulting in a graded potential or excitation of that postsynaptic cell. As long as the neurotransmitter is attached to the receptor, that signal will continue being received. Eventually, the neurotransmitter has to be removed from the receptor, either by reuptake by the presynaptic cell, or enzymatic degradation, like when acetylcholinesterase breaks down acetylcholine, or by diffusion of the neurotransmitter away from the receptor. The second and more rare kind of synapse we find in the body are referred to as electrical synapses. In an electrical synapse, the two cells are connected by a protein channel called a connexon. That connexon allows ions to flow directly from the presynaptic cell into the cytoplasm of the postsynaptic cell. This allows action potentials to travel directly from one cell to the next without needing any kind of chemical neurotransmitter to relay that message from the presynaptic cell to the postsynaptic cell.